Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping right into the incredible story of how a 23-year-old immigrant woman went head-to-head with the titans of industry and, well, totally upended the American labor landscape. We're going to dig into the monumental 1909 garment strike. This was a massive watershed moment, proving that young women weren't just passive workers. They were this vital, unstoppable force in both labor and politics. So, picture this. It's November 1909. You're in a packed, stuffy union meeting. Male union leaders have been standing at the front for hours, delivering these super cautious speeches, hesitant to really rock the boat. Then a young garment worker named Clara Lemlich basically says, "Enough." She marches to the podium and shouts this powerful Yiddish declaration to the crowd. "I have no further patience for talk. I move we go on a general strike." That one bold interruption, that was the spark. The ultimate inciting incident for a labor revolution. Because that single defiant sentence sparked the uprising of the 20,000. At a time when women were practically invisible to the political and labor establishments, this just completely shattered expectations. It proved the raw, undeniable organizing power of immigrant women who were willing to lay it all on the line for basic human dignity. Part 1, the era of sweatshops. To truly understand why this explosion happened, we need to step back into the brutal, everyday reality of the New York garment industry in the early 1900s. Because, guys, the conditions were just horrific. We're talking about young girls, mostly immigrants, grinding away for 65 hours a week on average, up to 75 during the busy season. Supervisors would literally lock the heavy steel exit doors to stop them from taking unauthorized breaks or to keep union organizers out. And get this, they had to pay for their own tools. You'd be charged for the needles, the thread, and the irons you used to make your boss rich. Plus, your already tiny paycheck got docked for the slightest mistake. Just an incredibly exploitative system. And there was this really intense double-layered oppression going on. On one side, these women are battling the garment lords, the owners obsessed with profits over people. On the other side, they're facing an unsympathetic, male-dominated union structure. The men in the factories got the higher-paying, skilled jobs, like pattern makers, and had the union's backing. The women, even though they made up like 70% of the workforce, were paid significantly less and pretty much ignored by traditional organizers who just didn't take them seriously. Part 2, Clara sparks a movement. Obviously, that level of frustration can only build for so long before it hits a boiling point. The buildup actually started a bit quietly. In September 1909, workers at the notoriously harsh Triangle Shirtwaist Company walked out. They wanted higher wages and union rep. But after 5 grueling weeks, the strike was kind of fizzling out. Enter Clara Lemlich on November 22nd. Like we talked about, she cuts through the endless talking of the male leaders and demands mass action. 2 days later, boom. Thousands walk off the job and the industry is brought to its knees. And this is absolutely crucial to remember. This became the first mass strike of female workers in U.S. history. We aren't talking about a couple dozen people here. An estimated 20,000 or more, primarily young Italian and Eastern European Jewish immigrant women, stepped out of the factories and straight onto the picket lines. Part 3, Uprising of the 20,000. What followed was a literal David versus Goliath battle against the wealthy factory owners during a freezing New York winter. To survive this fight, the strikers pulled together a really surprising and highly effective coalition. You had the raw bravery of the working-class immigrant girls taking police beatings in the cold. You had the ILGW handling the organizing and negotiations. And then you had the upper-class suffragists bringing in this massive wave of political leverage and public sympathy. Yeah, they called them the Mink Brigade. At first, the press didn't care at all about striking immigrant women. But when wealthy, privileged women, we're talking people like Anne Morgan, J.P. Morgan's daughter, started marching alongside them, everything flipped. Members of this Mink Brigade actually got arrested, and that finally forced the major papers to cover the horrific factory conditions. Suddenly, the garment lords were losing the PR war, big time. Part 4, a vital force emerges. With terrible press and a workforce that literally refused to back down, the factory owners had to make a move. By February 1910, the majority of them surrendered, and the workers won massive, game-changing concessions. They forced the owners to provide basic dignities. No more paying for your own thread. They secured shorter work weeks, got paid holidays, and guaranteed equal treatment for union members. Just an astonishing victory for a group society thought was totally powerless. Look at this success rate. It's staggering. By the end of the uprising, 85% of all New York shirtwaist makers were unified under the union banner. 85%! They proved, without a shadow of a doubt, that women were a vital, incredibly powerful force in the American labor movement. But unfortunately, there was a dark shadow over this triumph. The Triangle Shirtwaist Company, the exact place where the early strikes began, was one of the few employers that stubbornly held out. They flat out refused to sign the union's safety terms. They kept locking their doors to control the workers, and that corporate negligence directly led to the catastrophic Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire in March 1911. 146 workers died, an entirely preventable tragedy. The sheer horror of that fire proved something huge to labor organizers. Workplace safety wasn't just a union issue. It was inherently tied to political power. These working women realized that if they didn't have the right to vote, they couldn't force politicians to actually pass safety laws. You started seeing signs like this one in 1912, "We want the vote for fire protection." It deeply, permanently intertwined the labor movement with the fight for women's suffrage. So let's trace the dominoes right up to the modern era. Step 1. The 1909 strike proves women can organize. Step 2. The 1911 fire sparks massive outrage, leading to huge safety overhauls in New York, mandating unlocked doors and sprinklers. Step 3. Frances Perkins. She witnessed the Triangle Fire firsthand, and decades later, she becomes FDR's Secretary of Labor. She uses the memory of those women to champion the Fair Labor Standards Act. The minimum wage, child labor laws, the fire codes we rely on today, built straight on the foundation laid by these striking women. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this to chew on. Think about your own job. How different would your workplace be today without the sheer bravery of those young immigrant women back in 1909? Clara Lemlich and the 20,000 workers who followed her absolutely refused to be silenced. And honestly, their courage echoes in almost every protection we enjoy on the job today. Thanks for joining me, and keep exploring the incredible history that shaped our world.